Mark, why don't you hit us up with this post the death of Kamala Khan recap of issue 27.
Spider-Man and Black Cat are in pursuit of the Shocker, and Felicia doesn't like Spider-Man's tone. She says, have some fun, but Spider-Man is not playing around, so Shocker sets his gauntlet to Sirius, and somewhere Heath Ledger's Joker gets a royalty check. Black Cat goes down to Shocker to get all flirty with him, and Spider-Man is still not amused, which leads Shocker to wanna kill them both dead, but oops, his gauntlet fell off. Felicia becomes an instant meme by doing the why not both shrug about her mischievous ways. Shocker jumps in the background shouting, you're gonna die! Before he can add another E to that sentence, Spidey punches him out, and that's that. Felicia recaps last issue, the death of Kamala Khan, an amazing Spider-Man supporting cast member whose history on this title spans decades. Also, the city is quiet since the emissary evaporated, and before we can linger too long on that beat, Doc Ock's harness appears briefly. That brings us to Oscorp, with Norman Osborn looking forlornly at an image of Peter holding Kamala, only for one of his assistants to remind him, nay, remind everyone who doesn't read a B-Book miniseries, that Norman is cleared of any wrongdoing in the murder of Ashley Kafka, aka the Queen Goblin, not the Goblin Queen as I always like to call her. Norman keeps reliving that trauma though, like he's Robin Williams telling Matt Damon, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, before we flash back to a sleepy Peter, who is promising to avow the death of his long-tenured confidant and buddy pal amigo Miss Marvel. Doc Ock's tentacle appears in Peter's bedroom, which is totally normal, before being summoned by Otto Octavius himself, and man oh man, if you thought the character looked cartoony before, you need to see Ed McGuinness' artwork here. Doc Ock starts reciting some poetry, or maybe it's song lyrics I don't recognize. If it's song lyrics, it must be a modern pop song, because if it was anything from 1999 or earlier, I would be all over that like the Gen X nerd that I am. Otto is updating his octo arms with some nanofluid to create a blockchain of consciousness, and I think that's something that Andrew Yang used to talk about when he was running for New York City mayor. I can't be too sure. Flashback over to Oscorp, and Norman is still looking pretty forlorn and googly-eyed about everything, and he says the subtext out loud that he was so busy being upset about Miss Marvel, he forgot, nay, we all forgot, that he killed Queen Goblin in a miniseries that probably about 25,000 people bought. Norman lays it on pretty thick here, but Peter, despite being dour and mad about everything else, believes in him and doesn't think Norman is about to relapse into becoming a goblin at the moment. Foreshadowing much? Right on cue, we find out that the Queen Goblin's dead body naturally was not incinerated and instead is going to be studied for science, and well, what do you know? The Queen Goblin is alive and well and killing again. Killing so much, we might want to call her the Goblin Queen. No, she's still the Queen Goblin. Anyway, flash over to J. Jonah Jameson, who is utterly outraged that he hasn't shown up in a major Spider-Man story in ages, as well as being annoyed by the New York Bulletin running the story of him wearing Doc Ock's harness. That happened, what, a few months ago? A few years ago? Who even knows anymore? And just like Eddie Brock in Part 3 of Maximum Carnage, there's a knock on the door, and a very beat-up harness is there waiting for Jonah. And that is issue 27, Dan. Why don't we get into our review?